What's up, guys? Welcome to the latter half of my two-part mini-series, Recording Guitar at Home with Amp Sims. So in the first part, I talked a little bit about some of the tools you might need to get started with recording guitars at home and working with Amp Sims. So if you're just starting from square one and you're not prepared to record a guitar right now, then I would suggest going and watching the first part to this and then coming and checking this video out after. However, if you have all the gear and all the necessary software to record some guitar and you still feel like you need some help, stick around for an introduction to recording guitars using Reaper and Amp Sims. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this, or if you want to see some more of my Metallica reworks coming soon. And with all of that being said, let's just jump right into it and get to recording some guitars. Cool, so we've got Reaper open. And there's a few things we need to set up before we get started recording. And why don't you go download those plugins I mentioned last video, or they're in the description. It's going to be the Amped Roots Amp Sim from ML Sound Lab, and then the TSC 808 Core Tube Screamer from Mercurial. It is a Ibanez. It is a Ibanez clone, like overdrive pedal. So we're going to use those today. They're easy to install, but right away when you open Reaper, you want to set a few things up. So right off the top, you want to go up to the right corner and see what's going on here. You've got 44.1 kilohertz, 24-bit wave. That's what you want it to say. That's kind of the standard for recording and all that. You don't want to be messing around with this stuff in the middle of projects. So once you get it to that, leave it at these. And I'll show you how to kind of change these values. But so in that top right corner, 44.1 kilohertz, 24-bit wave. Let's get it to say that in the top corner. So then the next label we have here, it says 2 and 2 CH. That means 2 channels in, 2 channels out. So I've got 2 guitar recording channels and then 2 outputs to my speakers. And then this is our latency. We've got 128 samples, which is pretty quick, but I still find myself getting some delay. Some people might want it faster for recording guitars and things like that. But what latency is the time it takes from the source signal to be recorded, like to get from the source to the computer in your interface and then come back out the headphones. So you want for recording as little as possible, because you're going to run into some issues if it's not a very small value in time. See these milliseconds here, 4.4, 21. So that's 4.4 on the way in and then 21 on the way out. So it's taking 21 milliseconds for the sound to come back out. Now, that is like a little bit of a gap. So when you're recording a guitar, you're going to go bop, 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 bop. But while you're doing that, like that's the guitar, but in your headphones, it's coming like, a couple of milliseconds later, and you're getting ba 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 ba. So while you're trying to play, it's going to be very difficult to stay in time while you're hearing all this other garbage going on while you're just trying to play a specific rhythm or something. So having a low latency is good for recording, but what having a high latency is good for is mixing, because the more time you kind of give your computer in between like the source and coming back out of your speakers or your headphones, is that you give your computer time to breathe. You give it a chance to process everything, and it's going to make mixing a lot smoother for you, whereas having a low latency is going to make things kind of crackle. You might drop audio. You might have just a lot of different issues. So how do we adjust all of these values in the top right corner? Well, that's actually a little box you can click on, and it is going to bring you to this device menu. It's a shortcut. So you open the device menu and you need to find your interface, and usually you're running from the ASIO drives that come with them. You have to install that usually when you plug your interface in for the first time. So you plugged it in, you install ASIO. You need to find the driver for your specific. You need to find the driver for your specific interface. So in this case, mine's a Tascam US 1641. It's rather old, so bear with me here. But We open that and we'll find our interface right here. Enable the inputs. So these, like what's going on here is first and last. So it's basically, in order. Like if you have 10 inputs and you wanted 1 from 10 to be active and come down in the drop down menu on your tracks, then you select 1 as the first and 10th as the last. If not, then you select whatever you want. So my instrument inputs are on 9 and 10. So I'm going to run 9 and 10 only. Then select your outputs. Whatever outputs from the back of your interface are going to your speakers. It should be labeled like 1, 2, 3, 4 or something like that. I think I have 4 on mine. You are going to find those and select them accordingly. So there, right here, this 44,100 is the 44.1K we were talking about. So you want it to be set to that. So just change that value to 44,100 if there's nothing there or if it's a different size, whatever. Furthermore, you can actually go to your individual devices settings, so your interfaces settings. Not all of them have this menu, but when you click this ASIO configuration button, a menu should come up for a lot of different manufacturers and interfaces, and this is where you can adjust that latency. I can actually get my latency really low. I've only got it at I think it was 128 and 21 milliseconds coming out. So you can figure out some of your stuff there. And they're like, this is kind of a simple control panel. A lot of the newer ones have a good ASIO menu there once you open that up. So that is our device menu, and the next thing you want to check is your paths, I would say. So where is everything you're recording going to? If you've got a couple of hard drives, I would recommend that, so you have backups of your projects. So find out wherever you want to send things to and match those up. Find those folders in Browse, and then that's where all your media is going to go. And the next thing you want to do is find those plugins that you installed. So once you install them, you have to, the program has to find them. So find the folder where you installed them, usually in like VST plugins or VST or something like that, or just plugins in program files or program files 86 on Windows and all that. Program files 86 for 64-bit system on Windows anyways. Can't remember exactly how to do this on Mac. If you want to rescan and find those plugins, so now they'll be available for you in the effects drawer, app drawer, so to speak. So that is where that's going to be. And then all the plugins, you should see them kind of loading, and now you're ready to use them. So now that we've got that figured out, you can actually go to individual settings for each project by selecting project settings here or hitting Alt-Enter. And again, you can adjust all that stuff again, but for individual projects, except for the interface. But you can adjust almost everything else from this little menu on an individual basis for each project. This is good for, a number of reasons, but if you want to do some fine tuning, then take a look at this menu as well. One last thing I want to mention is you can go to this render menu from File, Render, then go to, there's a little radio button here, metadata. This is like title, artist, and stuff like that, track number, genre, all that sort of stuff. So if you're going to render off a song, you can actually embed this data with the track. So wherever it goes, that metadata will also go with it. So this is going to be good for, when you're actually rendering off whole songs and things like that, and you want a place to catalog them and an order to it and all that, and you want them to be in, for iTunes and things like that. You're going to use this and embed all the data you have for it. Right. So now you've got everything set up, kind of. It's, you can do a lot with those menus, but right now we're just sticking to basics. So that is where a good starting point anyways. So I've got something recorded here, but it's just because of my screen recording stuff. This is just your guitar signal coming in. So ignore that track for now. We want to add a track to record with. So how do we do that? There are a multitude of ways to do this. It's really just preference. You can double click. You can Control T or Command T on Mac. You can right click, insert new track. You can right click and insert multiple tracks or a virtual instrument. And you can also use the drop down menu from the top and insert track there. So I just do Control T. And when you look at this track, you've got a number of controls here. This will start from the right, and then we'll move to the left here and explain what these are. So the read button here is actually for envelopes and automation. So if you want to automate volume or pan or mute or anything like that, this is where you will go for that. This is the phase, like flip switch, polarity switch, whatever. We're not going to be needing that right now. However, you may need it for later for some things. But so this is our effects window, and you can click on that, and that is how you will load your effects in. Solo, mute, pan, so you can pan left and right. Routing for sends and receives and outputs and stuff like that, so you can send a track to another track or send part of that signal to another track and do parallel compression or send to directly to your speakers, anything like that. You can do a lot of that from this menu right there. Then you've got your master volume slider, or not master, sorry. You've got your track volume slider right here. Then you've got the arm to record button and our inputs down here. Input effects as well. This button with the little speaker is monitoring, record monitoring. So whether you're hearing yourself coming in to the interface through your headphones, that is this button right here. You can change a couple of settings. And then this is what we're recording. So this is where the input is coming from. So we want it coming from our guitar. But this is what it's recording. And I'm going to show you why recording the input is important later. But it's basically going to be for something like reamping. So we want to find our guitar input. So those inputs you activated in the menu from the top right here. You're going to find whichever one's got your guitar plugged into it. Mine in this case was instrument number 9, as you can see from this top track, and now I found it here. So mono instrument number 9, that is our guitar. And you want it coming in, you want to, okay, so then you want to, figure out sort of what you're recording. You can actually skip all of these settings down here by just right-clicking the arm to record button. And now you see your input, your record, your monitor, everything you just did, you can see that. So when you've got all that figured out, you've got your guitar plugged in and once you found the input you're on and figured out these labels here and all that, you want to record. So you've plugged your guitar in, you think your interface is on, everything's done. You've got ASIO set up, you've got your DAW set up. Now you want to record, so you're going to hit the record button, and on your input, you're going to sound something like this. And you're playing away, and you're not exactly sure the level it should be at while you're coming in. So you want it somewhere between, I don't know, -18 and -12 dB. You don't really want to go much higher than that. So let's check here in the mix menu. It's a little hotter than I normally would like it, but for demonstration purposes, this is okay. So, not bad. So that's what we want it to sound like right off the top. And to get it to this level, you kind of want to start at very minimum, strum your guitar, and start bringing that volume up on your interface on the dial. So bring it up slowly until you get till around there, and you are safe at this point. You're not going to come in too hot. You're going to start, if you're too loud, you're going to make this go into the red. You're going to make that go into the red, and you don't want that. That's clipping, and you're going to get distortion and all this crap. So don't want that. Leave it where it is, because once we add the amp sound, things are going to get loud once you start recording multiples of things. So let's grab the Amped Roots plugin from ML Sound Labs. I have linked that into the description. So where is that? It's right around here somewhere. I know that. Right there. Silly me. Okay, so you've opened Amped Roots. You've got it loaded onto the track that you are plugged into with your guitar plugged in. We're changing this to thrash metal. And now this is the sound you're going to get. So you haven't recorded anything yet, right? But what you want to do is have that armed so that you can even just hear you playing. You have to have the record arm on in order to even hear the playback. Basically engages the whole thing for you. So now that you've got an amp loaded on, I mean, it doesn't seem as hard now, really, as it did before. You're like, I need all this stuff and all these plugins. I need the computer and whatever. And it just seems like a daunting task, but it's really easy. I mean, that's why it's just really easy. So we've got that loaded on there, and you want to record a song. So I've got, that was, see how loud that got after I added the amp? So output. Adjust that output on the amp. Most amp sims should have it, so regardless of which one you're using, ML Sound Labs or not, that just adjust the output volume. Again, it's a little bit hot, but it's okay. It's under 12. It's doing all right. So this is Holier Than Thou, Metallica. Just playing the riff. So you're recording a song. So let's get it recorded. So you plug it in, you hit record, you record that. This is and now I'm going to show you exactly why we're recording on the way in, because you can actually print this the way it is. So I don't know how to do it in other DAWs, but in Reaper, you just right click and there's apply track / take effects to items as new take mono output. So that I want because I add reverbs and stereo and stuff like that after I do the mono output. So what this is printing that amp sound onto the DI that you've got recorded. So this is recording the DI. Look what happens. Render that as a new take. Mine takes a minute. And look what you've got. You got two different takes here. So let's add another track just because, and drag that down into that track. And let's take a listen. Whoa, okay. What is that? We've got the original take and the recorded amp take. So what this is super useful for is like reamping. So I don't like that guitar sound. I'm like, oh, there's too much mid on it. So I don't like it. I want to reamp it. So I could always take this and delete the active take, and now we're back to square one. So So if we drag that back up into the amp section there, or into our amp track, we're coming out of the amp again. So we open this and we're like, the mids are bad and we need more low or something. And now that's a chunky sound. So I go, okay, cool. I'm going to print it. And this will save you effects when you're recording, or save you CPU when you're recording multiple takes. So you want to do this and you'll drag it down and then you'll record your other take on top of it, and then so on and so forth for how many takes you have until you're satisfied. This is just really, it's great. I love doing it this way instead of recording just the captured amp sound, and then, you know, I'm kind of screwed later for going back and fixing. I have to record a whole new guitar take just to get the amp sound that I want. So basically, you know, it's really easy. I mean, you could download any of those amp sims that I linked last time and just get in and start recording that easily. All you want to do is make sure, again, that your latency is low. You're recording at 44.1 kilohertz, 24-bit wave, and it's pretty simple, especially in Reaper. Now, the very last thing I want to show you is that when you're saving, you might want to do something like this. So you go to Save Project, and now we bring up the file destinations and all that. So we want to create a folder. You see these folders here at the top? We can create one like that. So if I want this to be like guitar recording or something. Now we select this create subdirectory for project, and it'll make one of these folders. If you've already recorded into you've already titled the track and saved it, and you don't have a directory, or you already have a name for it, another directory, you can copy or move all of those media items from that directory or from that folder to your new folder automatically without touching anything. So we've made a guitar recording folder. When you open it back up, your recordings are inside of this destination. All right, guys, so that is like the very basics of recording, a guitar at home. It's pretty easy, and you can get a lot of good amp sims out there. Again, I'm linking a ton of stuff in the description, so check that out. And yeah, you just want to make sure that you're not coming in too hot. You're getting those, your low samples for latency while you're recording, high samples for latency while you're mixing, and just make sure that you don't have to print these takes. You can actually just, load up a bunch of amps if you want and just do the different takes on the different tracks, but it just is going to take up a lot of CPU from the plugins and all that. So that's just the very basics of recording guitar at home using amp sims. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video, perhaps a Metallica rework. Take it easy, guys.